Achieving the ultimate entrepreneurial dream of selling your company for a large sum should be the highlight of your life, right? But then why do the majority of business owners suffer from regret and even depression after the fact? This week on the Creative Genius podcast, Gail Doby sits down with Nate Collins, a wealth management expert whose fascinating career spans Wall Street, distressed debt trading, private equity, and a highly successful turnaround of a 150-year-old company. Nate pulls back the curtain on the harsh reality of the liminal period that business owners face post-exit, and why personal prosperity does not automatically equal personal fulfillment. Whether you're 2 or 10 years away from selling your firm, Nate outlines the precise strategic blueprint you need to optimize your business value, structure your advisory team, and intentionally design a post-exit life rooted in purpose, community, and health, so that your wallet and your heart are full after the fact.
Well, Nate, I'm so glad to have you here today. You have had the most interesting career, from trading distressed debt on Wall Street to managing commercial real estate at private equity firms, turning around a theatrical licensing company. And I think you have a few more little tidbits you want to share with me too. So why don't you go ahead and add to that?
Thanks, Gail. I'm so excited to be on this podcast. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience. Yes. So I have had a very circuitous career. It seems a little bit disjointed. However, at the end of the day, it has always been financially related. It has always been about investing money. And the two other ones that you mentioned is after I sold that licensing company, that theatrical licensing company that you discussed, and we'll discuss that later, I then went on to work at a hedge fund, and now I work in wealth management. So yes, always in the financial field. But you may say, wait a second, theatrical licensing, how is that financed? That sounds like theater. Well, ultimately, the real business was entering into agreements with the rights holders, the intellectual property rights holders, and entering an agreement to be a licensing agent on their behalf. And the way that it worked was very similar to real estate investment. We'd pay the rights holder up front a large amount of money, and then once we had the rights to license that property, similar to the right to, if you own a business, if you own a building, you lease it out. In this case, we licensed the property out for a specific amount of time, and we tried to maximize our return on investment by optimizing those licenses.
Interesting. Well, you've also been a business owner, and that was before you were a financial advisor to them. And so how did that help you eventually selling that theatrical licensing company?
Yes. So that was such a wonderful chapter in said circuitous career that I've had. Mm-hmm. And I really loved running a business. I really enjoyed operating a business. The licensing company, I took it over in 2011. It was almost, 250 years old. I'm sorry, 150 years old. Not older than this country, 150 years old. And when I took it over in 2011, it was a real turnaround story. It had just been poorly managed for decades, but with some exceptional luck and a great team, we were able to turn it around and become one of the most dynamic companies in the industry. And we ended up selling it in 2019 for just more than we had ever expected. And it was a lot of fun. Obviously, like any business, I had a lot of sleepless nights. So that experience, though, how does it help me now? I walked in those shoes. I walked in the shoes of a business owner from having those sleepless nights, being concerned about employees, being concerned about whether you're making the right investments in the company. Sometimes thinking that maybe you were a little too much out over your skis. And and being concerned and looking out for threats and looking out for opportunities. And then having the opportunity to sell the business to a strategic buyer, the largest privately owned music licensing company in the world, ended up buying our company. So it was a tremendous experience, full of ups and downs. And when I work with business owners now, I have that sympathy of actually having been there. I can relate to their concerns because I know their challenges. I also know their opportunities. I know where business owners typically are not focused and spending enough time, and I know where they can do more to optimize the values of their business or the value of their personal wealth. And it really is enjoyable because it's my purpose. My purpose is to support business owners through all parts of their journey, their business journey, from inception to exit. And it makes me feel really good to have that purpose. It makes me feel needed. It makes me feel like I matter to people. And so, my best days are any day I get to talk to my clients or a prospective client, talking about their business, helping them solve problems, helping them create strategies that achieve their goals.
It's really interesting. And we're going to dive into exit planning and thinking about how to prepare your business for sale. And as we start doing that, I'm approaching that because I'm thinking about that myself. And I know that a lot of our listeners are in the same boat. They're thinking about what is that future and how long does it take to prepare your business for sale. So I'm definitely going to go off the questions that I sent you, and we're going to maybe go off on a tangent and talk about some things that are related to preparing for what is a very big moment in almost any owner's life when they've worked for years building their business, and then it's time to really think about that future. So talk to me a little bit about how you approach going through that process with somebody, preparing them for this.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first, let me just share a little story. Earlier this year, in February, I slipped on some ice, fell down some steps, broke some bones in my back, got a concussion, and I couldn't move for a couple weeks. Well, when I say I couldn't move, I mean I was laid up in bed for a couple of weeks. Fortunately, it was just some fractures, and I didn't need surgery or anything. But the one thing I could do was type. So I actually wrote a book on exit planning. Actually, it's more of a workbook, and it guides a business owner through basically all the important steps to consider when you are planning to eventually exit your business. And this workbook is set up to guide somebody through anywhere from, say, 2 years to 5 years lead runway before the exit. Ideally, the more time, the better, of course. And the key to having a successful exit, there are a number of keys, I guess, really. But let's just start with the first one is really identifying 3 goals: your personal goals, your business goals, and your financial goals. When I say personal goals, what are you trying to accomplish out of selling your business? Why are you selling your business? Is it because you want more time with family? Is it because you're just tired of the grind of doing the business? Really understanding that. And then thinking about, are there other things to do? Are there other ways to solve those problems? Look, selling a business is really hard. 80% of businesses that go to market fail to sell. So, and I hope that everybody here, everybody who's listening, has an opportunity to sell their business someday, because it's an extraordinary experience. and it leads to some great opportunities when you have that sort of wealth creating event. However, it is hard. So why are you selling your business, right? But from the personal side, and what are you planning to do afterwards? And we can get into that later. Also, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Sure.
From the business side, understanding the goals. Who do you want to be the successor of your business? Who do you want to be the new custodian of this thing that you built, this child that you raised almost? Obviously, I can't really compare a business to a child. Nothing's quite like that. But the amount of energy that a business owner puts into their business is substantial. And a lot of business owners would say, yes, actually, my business is like my third child, or my second wife, or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Something, right? Not exactly, but it's just they feel very passionate about it. Is I guess
Sure.
what I'm saying. And so, who do you want to run that? And what do you see? How do you see your team transitioning with that business? And what's important to you in that legacy of this business that you built? Is it important that you get the highest amount of money for the sale? Or is it important that the business continues and the name of the business continues and the team of the business continues? So we talked about your personal goals, your business goals, and your financial goals. What is it that you're looking to do, accomplish on a financial level when you are selling your business? Why are you selling your business? Or how much do you need to accomplish the goals of your next chapter? Whether that next chapter is it starting a new business or retiring or something else? So you need to consider all three of those elements, the three legs of the stool: personal, business, financial, when you're thinking about selling a business.
Well, it's complicated, and I've actually had 6 of my clients go through exits, and it has been a very interesting situation. I have one going through an exit right now, and she's going. There's a lot to it, and I really can't divulge any of that here, but it has been an interesting process. And as you go through this process and watch from the outside as an advisor to that client, and you're coaching them about their business and helping them really build it and get it to where it is a saleable business, that's a whole different thing than the process of going through a sale. And the sale is definitely one of the most challenging things I've experienced with my clients, going through that whole process. And one of the things I find so fascinating is how emotional that process is, from so many aspects, from how it affects your team to how it affects you as the owner of the business to how it affects the buyer of the business. How would you recommend that people prepare themselves for that piece?
Yeah, I found that when I was going through my sale, I was poorly prepared. And because I was poorly prepared for that transaction, I ended up really overreacting to a lot of things and being highly triggered. It was a very emotional and tense process. And that lasts for, anywhere from 3 to 9 months. And so having that proper preparation is important. And the best way to do that is by working with advisors who have been there. Because when you are selling a business, it's most typically the first business that you've ever sold. And you probably are not going to sell another one. And typically, the person that you're selling to has bought businesses before. So they already know how that game is played. And they typically have very good advisors who are advising them and know how to maximize or optimize their own value of the purchase. So the best thing you can do is be well prepared by investing in your team of advisors. And I call it investing in your team of advisors, because the value that you get out of that investment will very likely be much more than the investment that you made. Whether it is having a good M&A advisor who can help create an auction process and drive up the interest in your business, help you market it, to having a good M&A attorney who can protect you who can protect you from liability after you sell your business, and can actually have very efficient negotiations with the buyer's attorney on the sale document. To perhaps you're doing a quality of earnings with a transaction accountant, which can turn out to be extremely valuable. Then on the personal side, you want to have tax strategies. Invest in those tax strategies. That was the big mistake I made. I didn't have any financial plan, any tax strategies going into my business, or going into the transaction, going into selling my business. And I ended up spending millions of dollars in taxes I could have avoided had I been properly prepared. And so invest in your team, invest early in your team, and you'll reap the rewards, not only financially, but also just emotionally, because they will be there to support you, and they will help you understand what is normal and how to approach the buyer when things may not be going the way that you expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would have to say, just watching from the outside on these other transactions, there was so much stuff that I had not experienced before going through this with my clients, and it was great because I learned a lot. And when I get ready to exit my business somewhere down the road, then I'll have a lot more data points about what to do and how to prepare better. But I love that you did this book, and it's unfortunate that you had to be laid up in bed to actually do the book. But tell me a little bit about it, what's in there, and some of the things that you'd recommend that people pay very close attention to.
Oh gosh, so the book is really a culmination of my personal experiences and the lessons that I've learned working with dozens of entrepreneurs and executives as they have sold their business or their businesses. And I do a quarterly business exit planning workshop, which kind of goes over those lessons, and I break it down into what I call the five elements of a successful exit. And the 5 elements, we've kind of touched on one of them or two of them already. First is, invest in your team of advisors. Make sure that you have a complete team of advisors. As I said, I was just missing 1 or 2 advisors. In fact, I actually had those advisors, but I didn't have the right advisors. I had a financial advisor and I had a tax accountant, but I didn't have the right type of financial advisor, and I didn't really do a good job of talking to my tax accountant about the transaction before it happened. So that was on me. So invest in your advisors, prepare for your next chapter, your post-exit life, and I want to come back to that in a second after I finish these 5. So, advisors, post-exit life, align your personal financial plan with your business plan. Thoroughly investigate all the different types of buyers out there. So many times we think we know who's going to buy our business or who we want to sell it to, but it's a good idea to fully understand the pros and cons of selling to each type of buyer, And the most important thing is understanding that what you want out of a transaction determines who you sell your business to, not the other way around, not somebody coming and giving you an offer determining what you want out of that transaction. So ahead of time, think about your goals. It always goes back to your goals. And then finally is optimizing the value of your business. And there are a number of ways to increase the attractiveness of your business to a buyer. And obviously one of them is by working with an M&A advisor and going through an auction process, but just internally, making sure that the business is not dependent upon you, the business owner or the CEO of the company, making sure that you have, policies and procedures documented so that somebody else can step into your company and run the company, making sure that your books, your financial books and your legal, all your important legal documents are complete and standardized. And there are a number of other ones too. And all of those have an impact on driving up the multiple of your business, the multiple of EBITDA that somebody's willing to pay for your business. And so now I want to take a second to go back to really why is thinking about your post-exit life so important to a sale? Why is that an essential element? And I do a lot of public speaking about this in particular. There was a study in South Africa that followed CEOs and found that after these CEOs left their businesses, whether they were retiring or they were selling their businesses, these CEOs went into this period which researchers call the liminal period, which is between phases. And this period was marked by feelings of worthlessness, confusion, uncertainty, depression, regret. There is a study done by PricewaterhouseCoopers that found that 75% of business owners who sell their businesses profoundly regret the transaction just 12 months later.
Oh, wow.
So, right, and this is supposed to be a seminal period, an event, a life-defining event for people that they should have great, fond memories of, yet they regret it. And I was one of those people. A year after selling my business, or within a year, I regretted selling my business. And why is that? Well, I didn't properly prepare for the next chapter. And so I spent probably 3 or 4 years suffering from depression. I wouldn't say it was clinical, but just I was not me. I remember I went and saw a friend, and the friend said, Nate, you sound like you have postpartum depression. And I did. I really,
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just business owners that go through this. It's anybody who has a significant change in their lives. Sure. Mothers, right? Or say you retire, or say you move. You probably have you might have these feelings of, you may be going through a liminal period as you reestablish your new life, your new routines. But I was really suffering. And it really impacted my identity because I always thought of myself as a very optimistic and energetic and, reliable person. And these feelings were changing who I was. And not only did my friends notice that, my family noticed that, my 2 children noticed that. And that was not the identity that I wanted. That's not the legacy that I wanted them to remember me by. So, I looked around, it's funny, before I selling my business, I really wanted, for me, my goal was personal prosperity. I wanted, when I sold my business, I was like, I want to make a lot of money, because I grew up without money. I grew up in the woods, in the Catskills, without electricity, in a cabin. So, finally having some level of wealth was very important to me. And so afterwards, because I was not happy, I wasn't fulfilled, I thought, well, maybe I just was not wealthy enough. Maybe that was the big problem. And so I went and worked at the hedge fund that I told you about. And I still didn't feel fulfilled. And I went and had lunch with my business coach, and he recognized that I was going through the liminal period. And he said, Nate, listen, I'm going to share with you my framework for personal well-being, post-exit personal well-being. And he said it's 3 things. It is purpose, community, and health. Find your purpose, build your community, prioritize health. Now, health, right, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like basic, right? That's
sure.
You cannot have any well-being without personal health. And so that's mental and physical. And there's a lot that goes into health, especially mental health. And one of the things that goes into mental health is feeling secure about your finances. And I hadn't done that, right? I told you I didn't have a financial plan. So, and I just didn't know I didn't know what having money in the bank meant. All I knew what having a paycheck meant. And that's what happens to a lot of people who sell their businesses. Or retire. They say, well, I don't really know what this means to have a lot of money in the bank, but I know what it means to be able to pay my bills with my paycheck. So I had to sort that out. But then community. A lot of entrepreneurs, executives, a lot of people who've been in a business for a long time, their community are the people who are in the business or in that community or in that industry. And I'll tell you, when you sell your business, if you sell it on a Monday, Tuesday, nobody's calling you. Maybe you get some calls to say, hey, congratulations. But in general, a lot of those relationships, they dissipate very quickly. And so who is your new community after you sell your business? And then the third thing is purpose. And purpose, a lot of people say, well, go find your purpose. But I don't think that's actually, I think you need to define it more. And the way that I think about their purpose is having a sense of purpose comes when you feel like you are relevant to the lives of other people. Mm-hmm. When the fact that you are in existence helps other people achieve whatever it is that they are trying to achieve. When you're doing something that is bigger, you are there for something bigger than yourself. And, that's why you can't just, sell your business and then go play golf all the time, or sell your business and go sit on the beach, whatever it is. You have to do something that helps improve the lives of other people. Now, that could be, your purpose could be it could be charitable. You don't need to get paid for it. Or you could be doing something that provides an income for you. It could be working with people who don't have any means and need financial support or need other things to actually just basic things to live. Or it could be just people who need knowledge and information. Be people who need just support. They need somebody to talk to. And it could be less direct. It could be helping to improve the environment or helping work in your local community because that helps improve the lives of others. Whatever it is, you will find purpose when you are doing something that benefits the lives of other people's lives. And I finally found that after talking to my business coach, I realized that I had the wrong goals in life. My goal had been personal prosperity. And it's no wonder that hadn't led to personal fulfillment, because it doesn't. It was actually personal well-being that leads to fulfillment. When I finally created new goals that supported my mental health, my community, or building my community, and finding my purpose, that's when I was able to come out of the liminal period. That's when I found personal fulfillment. And that's what brought me here to doing what I do today. As I said before, it's my purpose. I love it. I love talking about it all the time. I love sharing my story. I mean, if it can just help one person transition into their next chapter more easily without having to go through what I went through, it's completely worth it.
That's so great. Well, it's so important to have this conversation early, as you said, and 2 to 5 years out from the time you're planning to exit. And it's a fascinating process for each person to go through. And I think about this because my husband's been retired for 8 years, and he's a happy clam. He is the happiest guy. And his purpose, though, is to take care of me. So it actually has worked out quite well for me, because I am just one of those people that's very driven by my purpose, too, and what I'm doing. So this has been a really interesting conversation, and it has given me a lot of things to think about for myself as well. So I greatly appreciate you being here today.
Gail, what is your purpose?
My purpose is really to help other people build a business and a life that are meshed together, that they love.
That's
and
great.
have the freedom that they want to have in their lives, whether it be financial freedom or time freedom or both. They can have that. And to me, that if I can help them do that, then I've achieved my goal with them.
That's great. And, I think the key words were the first words that you said. My purpose is to help ... help, or, my purpose is to help other people. And I think when you can say that, or when you can say, I help other people, that's when you know you found your purpose.
Yeah, it's something that late in life, I decided to start this business. I was 52 when I started it, and much older now. And
That was like 2 years ago?
it's been, thank you. I wish it were true. But honestly, I think it's been one of the most challenging and interesting and fun things that I've learned, is that every day I get to learn, every day I get to help these people grow and expand, and not just themselves, but their whole team, and just helping companies understand what they need to do internally in their companies to be ready to sell, or be ready for all of those other future things that they're looking for. It has to be very intentionally done, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. It must feel great to have one of your clients go through and have a successful exit.
Yes, and I hope every one of them has exactly what they want out of it. So, well, thank you so much for your time and for coming today, Nate. And please tell us the name of your book so that we can have everybody go buy that if they're getting ready to exit.
Well, it's still a working title, so I don't know what it is. But I expect that I'll be giving away more books than I will actually be selling. And what I would like to do is invite everybody just to send me an email if they're interested in learning more. My email is nate.collins@raymondjames.com. You can also find me very easily on LinkedIn at Nate Collins, Raymond James. And I invite everybody to join my business exit planning workshop. I do it on a quarterly basis.
Great. That is so great to hear. We'll make sure and put that in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much, Gail. It was a pleasure.
Same here.
Nate Collins' story is an essential wake-up call for any entrepreneur who thinks that a massive payday is the final destination. His blueprint for navigating the psychological and tactical hurdles of exit planning proves that what you want out of a transaction must determine who you sell to, not the other way around. We hope his 3 core pillars of post-exit well-being, purpose, community, and health inspire you to begin planning your next chapter early, thoughtfully, and with integrity. Don't forget to check the show notes for all of Nate's links. And join us next week on the Creative Genius podcast for a discussion with George Diebold, an experienced photographer who supplies interior designers with high-quality photographic art. Many interior designers grapple with similar challenges. At Business Breakthrough Live, you can connect with other designers facing the same struggles you are. Join us in Denver from July 26th to 27th to connect with other designers, receive tailored business advice, and work side by side with our expert coaches. Learn more at thepearlcollective.com/BBL. Hear what Business Breakthrough Live attendees have to say.
I was feeling stuck in my business after a year and a half, and I really needed the tools and knowledge to take it to the next level. I have such a big vision for the company, but I needed the help, and I know I needed the help, and I knew that the Pearl Collective was the team for me to take my company to the next level.
It was fascinating to me to talk with people that understood this business and how we can pull levers to change what we're doing.
So when I heard about Business Breakthrough Live, it was a $1,000 non-commitment. So basically you pay the $1,000, and then if you attend the event, they write you a check for $1,000 back. And they held that promise. I opened the folder on the first day, there was a check for $1,000. And really all I had to do was just enjoy myself and have a good time.
On the first call, there was no hesitation at all about it.
Same.
To me, there was no risks. So just go, experience it, see what it's like.